So
Yeah.
share with our audience because it is so important, being able to really articulate your personal brand or tell your story is crucial. But what is key to really building that story? Like, what is it that individuals really need to focus on so that they can tell their story?
Yeah, good question. Uh, this is super fundamental and for that reason, hyper important.
Hmm.
I call it doing a career capture where you look back over several roles in your career. And
Hmm.
even if you're 25 and you have two jobs, you're still going to go backwards
Hmm.
and look at the things that you've accomplished or the contributions that you've made. And you're really looking at it too for impact. What changed as a result of my role in that organization? What
Hmm.
were the highlights and accomplishments? And so, first, it's really just to list those things and then to go through and mine it for, well, what does it look like I value?
Hmm.
Okay. What are the personal values running through the things that I do?
Hmm.
What are the repeating themes? What am I always doing? Right.
Right.
And then strengths, looking for strengths, things, your leadership strengths, your personal strengths. And then you'll start to see language, collections of words, phrases that will pop up in that writing.
Hmm.
And when I'm working with clients, they will do it. They'll take the first pass, but then I'll come in and I'll grab words and phrases and language, and all of that will kind of funnel up and be part of the language that you use for your one liner,
Hmm.
your value proposition, if you will, and also what I call them several things, but your opening statement.
Hmm.
Let's say you're about to pitch yourself for a raise or promotion, and
Hmm.
a raise and promotion, a promotion and raise.
Right.
Um, you need to have that story down. You need to have that narrative down, and it needs to embrace your strengths, to express your strengths, and then also what you're poised to deliver in the future,
Hmm.
and why you're the one to solve those issues or problems, those
Right.
pain points in your organization. So it's who am I for you?
Ah,
What,
yes.
right?
Hmm.
So it's not just, mindlessly bragging.
Right.
There's purpose to your story. There's a
Hmm.
purpose to that narrative. So that the first piece is really to know thyself and will really get down in the weeds of what you contribute. And I think also an important piece of that is to look at those patterns and repeating themes that you no longer wish to do
Hmm.
because they're holding you back from advancement, or they're boring. You don't like them anymore.
What are some techniques that you have helped, your clients in the past with on having that courage or that confidence to ask for what they deserve, in some of those negotiating tactics of
Yeah.
just having the confidence to say, this is what I want, this is what I need, and I deserve it. How do you help them overcome those fears and limiting beliefs?
I think you hear people talk so much about confidence, like be confident. It's actually impossible to like to tell yourself be confident.
Right.
What does
Right.
that mean? You don't just put on clothing and suddenly, oh, there it is, there I am. It's a set of it's a repetition. It's practice,
Mm.
practicing over and over again, advocating for yourself and others, speaking up. So one of the things that I do, I might even work vocally with people, but
Hmm.
definitely role playing with, let's say it's an interview for a new role.
Right.
What are all those typical behavioral interview questions? What are you likely to be asked? What is the company going through right now that is critically important inside your role?
Mm.
What's the news about the company? Where are they struggling? And how can you, um, sort of set yourself up to solve that? Well, all of that is research. That's all background information.
Hmm.
And then there's all the background information, background work that you're doing on yourself,
Hmm.
and then role playing practice, whether it's with me, with friends, with colleagues.
Mhm.
Um, but I think fundamentally, it's it's about understanding the stories you tell yourself, right? Most
Mhm.
of them are BS. Most of them are not true.
Mhm.
Because if we do that career capture work, look at the amazeball stuff that comes out of that kind of work. You
Mhm.
did this, you did, these are scientists, these are doctors, these are VPs and, queens of chaos. They are talented human beings.
Yes.
So it's really about wrapping your arms around who you really are and learning to flip that narrative. And like, I have a couple of examples of, so for example, somebody might say, have been criticized, say, for, hey, you don't speak up in meetings. You really need to, kind of come to the table a little more prepared and speak
Mhm.
up.
Right.
Now, one way you can flip that or kind of reframe these negative comments is to
Mhm.
say, I prefer to listen and really deeply get what people are wanting and needing, and then
Mhm.
go away and think on it. And I can be most valuable to you post meeting.
Mhm.
So I'm not disappearing in the meeting, I'm in it, right?
Right.
So, that might be something that an introvert, might do, or somebody who's very analytical and needs to spend time with things, or um, I'm not a people person, people will say.
Uh-huh.
Well, the flip side of that, or a reframe, I'm constantly doing reframes with people, is
Mhm.
I prefer deep conversations one-on-one,
Mm. Yes.
right? To reframe not who you're not, but who you are.
Right.
Um, so that's very frequently in any coaching conversation, these things will come up where you do have to give people time inside that story. You
Mhm.
can't rise above it without examining it. You
Mhm.
can't just, sort of move past this thing that's been around your neck in an instant.
Right.
It does take some work, but to honor that somebody actually, yeah, I get that you feel that way. I can see, I got it. I understand it. To be empathetic
Mhm.
and understand their lived experience is their lived experience.
Right.
But we can't stay in it forever, right?
Mhm.
We need to move past it.
What are some tips that you can share that you've coached individuals in the past of overcoming failures and setbacks um, to enrich their story?
I have a really great recent example. It kind of took place over a year
Mhm.
with a client, but she was told by her female boss, whom she did get along with very well and adored on many levels, but was told, you're too hard charging. And also in meetings, you're constantly over explaining. You talk too much,
Mm.
right? So we had to really get inside that, like, what's really true? What do you really notice about yourself?
Mhm.
And if it's true, what's going on that's causing you to be insecure in that moment and want to overtalk things? So
Mm.
first is it true? Because people have all kinds of opinions about us
Mhm.
that come through the lens of bias. Whatever their story is,
Right.
we're being filtered through their lens.
Mhm.
And so it's important to dissect what's really happening. And if you can dissect it with that person who
Mhm.
has that opinion, like, where does that come from? What makes you uncomfortable about this when I do this?
Mhm.
So it's not only you owning what you may be doing wrong, in quotes, but also um, helping your conversation partner understand how they might be seeing things in sort of a, an incorrect light.
Right.
So often what would come up with this partner, this relationship here, is, oh wow, yeah, I am blaming you for being too strong. I
Mhm.
am blaming you. You're not playing the role like I see it needs to be played.
Right.
that was kind of a turnabout for her. But she also did work on,
Mhm.
okay, maybe I'm over talking, I'm over explaining. Maybe what I need to do in meetings more is turn it over to different people to take their part,
Mhm.
or to ask open-ended questions to their resistance instead of explaining more.
What are some techniques that will help individuals in making those difficult decisions so that they can move forward with confidence?
Yeah, I think this is something that your business is organized around too,
Mhm.
and that's community. That's your posse. Those are your
Mm.
people.
Yes.
Who do you go to? Who's on your personal board of directors? Are
Mhm.
you in a mastermind group? Is there what are you doing? Who are you talking to? Who
Mhm.
sees you act accurately and can challenge you when you're sort of off base, or
Mhm.
when your fear level has risen so high that you're not making decisions.
Right.
So I think it's really about, I always call it either your influence posse, whether
Mhm.
it's at work. So if you're trying to make a decision at work, you might need the support of your board of directors outside
Mm.
of work,
Right.
but you can also tap your network, which is why it's so critical to know your story, know what you're up to,
Mhm.
know the goals and objectives that you're trying to achieve in your career, and make sure that other people know what you're up to,
Yes, yes.
right? There's no magic wand, oh, there, ta-da, there's your role.
Right.
People have to know what you're up to.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of the stasis, and indecision that we get into is because we're not seeking wise counsel.
Mhm.
One of the things I constantly do with women, I have them make a matrix of
Mhm.
everybody who's on their team
Mhm.
and the influencers who should be on their team or could be.
Yes.
Who do you need to know and why? And not only who and why, but what do you know is important to them? What are their interests?
Right.
What are their goals and preferences? And what do you notice them talking about? And how can you be of value to them? Even if
Yes.
it's a quickie solve of a conversation, or something bigger, a project.
What are some techniques or some tips that you can share with, how do you gain access to those influential leaders?
Yeah, boy, I'm not sure that this is my best area to answer
Uh-huh.
because in truth, um, well, you know what? I'm doing that girl thing. I'm just gonna stop. I'm gonna
Okay.
stop doing
Love
that.
it. Yes.
I'm gonna say what I
You're
was never.
honest labeling yourself right now.
I did just doubt myself. I think it is really trying to identify the linkages between people. So if there's often have fear of going above our boss's head, right? Or,
Mhm.
"Oh, I really shouldn't do that. I should start at this step."
Mhm.
If you communicate to your boss, your manager, what your goals are, and they're not the right kind of, they're really not in your corner, or
Right.
they're bad at asking, they're terrible negotiators,
Mhm.
you need to ask permission, and maybe even in some cases not ask,
Mhm.
and go outside of the chain of command to be seen and heard,
Mhm.
but request a seat at the table with the influencer that you want to
Mm.
know. So if
Right.
that's the right hand person, get to know the right hand person,
Right.
um, um, and be visible, be seen, right?
Mhm.
So how do you be visible? How do you get seen by those influencers? Again, it's knowing what's important to them, and
Mm.
perhaps throwing your hat in the ring to participate in something that will make it obvious.
Maybe share a few more daily habits or rituals that you have done in your career that have helped with your success. What are some of those habits and rituals that people don't realize they need to do over and over? It's not just a one and done thing.
Yeah. this is going to sound so rudimentary, but if it's not on your calendar, it's not going to happen.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so if one of your goals is to create that influence that we've been talking about,
Hmm.
well, wouldn't it stand to reason that email so and so needs to show up, or call Jack on Friday needs to show up on your calendar?
Hmm.
If it's not there, it's not going to happen.
Yes.
So, and I think also get really married to blocking time out in your calendar
Hmm.
for projects, for anything that you're having trouble committing to.
Hmm.
Block it, put it in your calendar. And I talk about it like putting your shoes by the door.
Hmm.
If you're having trouble, you say you want to run a 5K or a marathon. Well, start by putting your damn shoes in the door.
Yes.
Now, you might not get them on today, but maybe tomorrow you'll put them on and you'll get out the door. And
Hmm.
then maybe the next day you'll run half the way and walk half the way.
Right.
You have to give yourself sort of these physical cues, like a yoga mat on the floor,
Hmm.
so that you remember your commitments.
Hmm.
Remember, that they're front and center for you. I have another one that's really rudimentary, and I'm
Yes.
stealing it from one of my mastermind gals. Um, Her name is Sarah Caputo, and she runs a company called Sarah Caputo Consulting.
Uh-huh.
She's a phenomenal workflow coach and productivity expert.
Hmm.
And she tells people, have one book, one
Mm.
notebook, not 12. Have one, everything gets written down in there. If you prefer to do this kind of stuff online or on your phone, fine.
Right.
Same idea. Take notes, write your to-do list, keep one book. It's your second brain. Don't rely on just winging it, right?
Yes.
Um, and I've been doing having one book for probably my whole life. Like
Right.
my whole, it's just a thing I do. Plus, I love the sound of pencil on paper.
What can help women accelerate their success and stay ahead of the curve? What do you do to stay ahead of, like, just the ever changing environment, especially when it comes to navigating the work world?
You have to learn. You have to read.
Yes.
You have to learn. You have to read. So, this is something that's constructed within your business beyond barriers.
Hmm.
You've got all of these learning tools, these online courses that are attached to um,
Hmm.
coaching and
Hmm.
cohorts of people who will help you implement what
Hmm.
you learn. And I would not learn just for the sake of like take a class and do nothing with it. Is I think there's a statistic that you will forget what you've learned within about 3 days. If you don't start to implement it, it's
Hmm.
just not going to happen.
Right.
It's just, oh, that was a waste of time.
Right.
know? Um, but I will say, I'm very committed to LinkedIn Learning. I've done 5 courses there. It's a brilliant platform, and they're learning more and more about how people are using the learning. So the learning is getting more bite-sized
Hmm.
and also curated, where you might have 3 videos from one course and 3 videos from another
Uh-huh.
expert course to all that are also around a theme. So
Right.
I think that's very important, learning and reading and
Mm.
just being curious and staying abreast of things and not being fearful of technology.